Tesla Model S Plaid burst into flames earlier this week while the owner was driving it, just 3 days after delivery. The driver's attorney says the driver was initially not able to get out of the car as the locks malfunctioned, and he had to force his way to the door, through the door, to escape.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nicholas, and this is Investing Against the Grain. In today's episode, we're going to look into the recent Model S Plaid fire that occurred a couple days ago. And we're also going to listen to the ex-CEO of Ford and the supposed competition that's coming for Tesla. Towards the end of this video, stick around because I also am going to be showing you some hard evidence, some proof that by far nobody's even close to Tesla when it comes to battery technology. So please stick around. One more thing, please help us out. We are attempting to get to 50 YouTube subscribers by the end of July. Currently, we're halfway there, a little past. We're about 26 subscribers. If you want to see more of this, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and let's get into it.
Tesla Model S Plaid burst into flames earlier this week while the owner was driving it, just 3 days after delivery. The driver's attorney says the driver was initially not able to get out of the car as the locks malfunctioned, and he had to force his way to the door, through the door, to escape.
Let's unpack this a little bit. So what we know is that an individual bought a brand new Model S Plaid, and it was delivered to the individual 3 days prior to this fire occurring. Now, with that said, what we know so far is that the individual claims that, smoke started to appear within the cabin of the vehicle, and then a fire, began to emerge, and he attempted to escape the vehicle, but the car door was either jammed or maybe, something with the software wouldn't allow the door to open, so the individual claims. And he had to, climb out of the window, I suppose, or break the glass. Not really sure what happened there. So that's what we know so far. Interesting point here that, the attorney was supposed to show up on CNBC to give an interview, but never showed up. That's interesting. There's a couple other, weird aspects to this entire situation. Apparently, the individual in the car crash hired 3 separate lawyers just for this situation. I understand, the impact of your car going up in flames and, you wanting to probably get, your money back from the vehicle or get a new vehicle. But I'm not really sure why you would hire 3 lawyers. And why would you even hire any lawyers before you speak to Tesla? It's not really unusual for Tesla not to comment on these sorts of things. Tesla normally stays pretty quiet until all the details are out. We saw that a couple months ago with the whole Texas situation. But let's keep watching here and see, if they blow this out of proportion or if they go ahead and start to insinuate things that are, rumors, and if they treat them as facts.
According to the Lower Merion Fire Department in Pennsylvania, copious amounts of water were poured on the vehicle for over 2 hours in order to extinguish the fire and render the scene safe. We've reached out for comment from Tesla, have not heard back. The driver's attorney, Mark Garagos, was supposed to join us to discuss all this, but canceled on us in the last minute. So let's bring in Phil LeBeau with the latest details on this story. Phil, was this the battery that caught on fire? What do we know?
We don't know a whole lot, Sarah, and that's what makes this sort of interesting. Also because this is a battery fire in a Tesla that was not involved in a crash. At least we don't think it was involved in a crash. They say the driver was driving along when he noticed there was some smoke. Then he realized he needed to get out of the car. According to Mark Garagos, he couldn't open the door. Eventually was able to get out of the car, and then it was completely engulfed in flames. Eventually was able to get out of the car, and then it was completely engulfed in flames. The fact that there was not a crash, and others have reported on over the last year and a half, 2 years, have involved Teslas where they burst into flames following an accident. And often it's because the lithium-ion battery pack has been punctured in some fashion. So this crash raises the question, but certainly does not indicate that it's true that there was some type of a software malfunction that caused this fire. But it certainly is a question that has come up. And we'd love to talk to the driver. I know that Mark Garagos was supposed to be on the air with us. We'd also like to talk to the driver. I mean, it's one thing to hear from the attorney. It's another thing to hear from the driver himself.
So these are actually, surprising, very good points by Phil. So one, we don't actually know if the fire was started from the battery. We don't know if there was a software malfunction. The truth is, we don't know a whole lot. And he said that, which, hey, kudos to you, CNBC, for doing real reporting and not just, running to a headline that just kind of clickbait and, spreading FUD. I would also say, something unusual is that the individual couldn't get out of the car, saying that, it wouldn't work. But I could understand maybe if you're saying that the push button doesn't work to open the door, but the manual release should have worked. I mean, there's a reason it's a manual release. So, as this investigation continues, it'll be very interesting to see what unfolds with regards to that. And Phil hit the nail on the head too. It's one thing to hear from the lawyer. I'd like to hear from the individual, see what actually happened. Right? See how much this story changes. There's already so many rumors out there. I don't want to say that what this individual is saying didn't happen, but just as there are rumors of what supposedly occurred, there's also other rumors of supposedly this vehicle was going uphill on fire with no driver in it. Nobody ever saw a driver get out of the vehicle, so that raises questions. And then there's always the ultimate conspiracy of all of this happening right before Q2 earnings. So, there's a lot of, grayness into this and a lot of room for open interpretation.
Phil, does Tesla, as a percentage of total cars they have on the road, have more issues than other companies, or do we cover them more? It feels like there's more stories like this for Tesla than other brands.
I think they get more attention for a couple of reasons. One, because you have these reports when it takes place, whether it's the fire department or local press, where they say, oh, a Model S crashed, or a Model 3 or Model Y, whatever Tesla model it might be, and it burst into flames, and these flames are all over the place, and then it's on social media. In the case of the fire down in Houston, in the fatality involving two people who were in a Tesla, you had the fire department saying, well, yeah, there was nobody behind the steering wheel, and so there was somebody in the back seat. Were they trying to make autopilot function? Which raised a whole number of questions that the media then chased. Tesla fans do have a point when they say there's too much coverage about these fires, because if you look at Tesla fires relative to the number of vehicle fires, especially with internal combustion engine vehicles, it's a very, very small percentage, and yet they get most of the attention.
So, refreshing take here on CNBC of asking a actual question of whether or not, there's just a lot of coverage of something that maybe isn't as big of an issue as we see. Whether it's any Tesla accident, whether it's, even if this was a real fire, right? How frequently do these things actually happen when it comes to Tesla? It's not that often. A internal combustion engine, it's a constant explosion inside the engine, right? Inside the block, you have pistons firing, and it's nothing but explosion. There's all this fuel involved as well, right? Going from the back of the vehicle to the front. If that gets into an accident, odds are a lot higher that it's going to catch on fire than a electric vehicle. So, the idea that, electric vehicles are so prone to fires and they take copious amounts of water, the word copious, it felt like that was forced, to be honest, within that segment. But the idea that it takes, so much water just to put the fire out because it's an EV, these are just kind of straw man arguments against EVs. They're not really worth their salt when it comes to the argument. The truth is that Tesla makes headlines because it's Tesla. And so they get over-reported, and, it's all about the views and the clicks and the likes and, all that stuff. And, while we're at it, please subscribe. Help us get 50 before the end of the month. But aside from that, it's refreshing to hear them, kind of just tell the truth, right? Explain that we as shareholders, we as the Tesla community have a very valid point that this stuff gets kind of blown out of proportion and it's covered a little too much. And, the reality is Teslas are the safest cars on the market. And I don't just mean one Tesla, all of them, right? They hold all the top spots. So the truth is this is completely exaggerated.
Well, Garagos has said in previous interviews that he wants NHTSA to recall the cars from the road. Hope he'll join us because we have a lot of questions. Phil LeBeau, for now, thank you.
And this is ridiculous. The idea that NHTSA would remove an entire line of Tesla, the entire Model S Plaid line, just because one vehicle had a fire and we don't even know the cause of it. The idea that you would rush to this judgment of let's, have a total recall, take them all off the streets. This is like telling someone that they're guilty before you even have a jury or allow them to have a trial to actually see what the facts are. That's just ridiculous on its face.
Race continues with GM and Ford fueling up their competition against Tesla. Joining us now is Mark Fields, former Ford Motor Company president and CEO. He's also a CNBC contributor. Mark, great to have you with us.
Hi, Melissa.
I want to ask you about Tesla and this fire in this brand new Tesla Model S Plaid. Caught fire in a suburb of Philadelphia. This is according to Electric. And I'm wondering, how you think this impacts at all the appetite for either Teslas and for EVs in general.
Well, I think for Tesla buyers, it's not going to impact the demand for these vehicles very limited wise. The Plaid, it's never a good thing when you have a new product that comes out to the market and a few days after you launch it, it's on the front pages of the newspapers or web pages being on fire. But I do think it does for the general population. It does cause a little bit more doubt as you think about purchasing an electric vehicle. But nonetheless, Melissa, I do think that electric vehicle sales are going to continue to grow over the next number of years as the manufacturers are bringing these products to market. Bottom line, it doesn't help, but I don't think it hurts too greatly either.
I completely agree with him. So, this fire, it really had no effect on the stock. I don't think it's going to have any effect on sales. The truth is the demand is there, right? The world is changing from the old paradigm of ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines, to a world of electric vehicles. This isn't slowing down. This is only accelerating. And I agree with him. The fire, the headlines, it doesn't help. But, in the big scheme of things, right, we're long-term investors here. We're not sitting here for quarter to quarter. We're thinking the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So, in the big scheme of things, we're not even going to remember this. This is just going to be a drop in the bucket. And the truth is, it didn't even affect the stock, right? We just kind of shrugged it off as just more noise, which is very healthy from a stock perspective. But this is very interesting to hear, ex-CEO, VP of Ford saying this. It's also interesting, isn't it, how he's a now CNBC contributor. This just shows the power and impact Tesla has had on the entire world, that now CNBC has the ex-CEO of Ford as a contributor, right? And this is simply just so that they can talk about electric vehicles, and so they can talk about Ford and the competition that's supposedly coming.
We've certainly seen these stocks, the legacy automakers, Ford, GM, go higher on their new EV offerings, Mark. And I'm wondering how you think investors should think about valuations. I guess the thinking is that if GM has a strong portfolio or Ford has a strong portfolio, it should get a little bit more of that Tesla valuation. And I'm wondering if you think that's correct and what your perspective on where the stocks are right now.
Well, I think you are starting to see the market appreciate what the traditional auger makers are bringing to the party in terms of electric vehicles. For a long time, Tesla had the market to themselves, and they've done a good job in pushing the industry towards electric vehicles. Their stock and their multiple and their valuation, clearly outpaced literally every stock in the S&P 500, but of course, very much versus the traditional automakers. But you are seeing now, particularly over the last 9 to 12 months, the market start to appreciate that these products are coming out from the established OEMs, and they're very good products. And you're starting to see them eat into the market share for Tesla. Here in the U.S., Tesla has usually commanded about 75% of the total EV market here in the U.S. That's down now to about 50% as folks like Ford bring out their products like their Mach E, and you have Chevy with their products and in the market now and coming out. You have others like Hyundai. So everybody is coming to the party now with great products, and I think you're seeing the market starting to give some love to the Fords and the GMs of the world on their efforts there.
So let's start off with the question about Tesla valuation versus the valuation of GM, Ford, Volkswagen, etc. Those companies are auto companies. That's all they have. That's all they're doing. Yes, they're trying to break into the EV world, and they're trying to expand those portfolios. But just because you're doing that does not mean you deserve the same valuation as Tesla. Okay, these companies are not the same. Ford, GM, Volkswagen, they're an automotive company. That's it. When we look at Tesla, we see a software company whose hardware happens to be vehicles. We see a company that's revolutionizing the electrical grid with their storage packs, the mega packs. And we also see an AI company who's the leader in neural nets when it comes to real world AI. So these are not the same companies. Okay, these are legacy companies versus a tech company. It's apples and oranges. And as far as, he starts to mention, the Mach E, the Chevy Bolt, right? They talk about this competition that's coming and Tesla's losing market share. Okay, let's take a step back. First of all, if Tesla owns the entire market and then you sell 2 or 3 cars, yes, okay, Tesla lost market share because now you're selling things. But in reality, odds are you're just cannibalizing your own sales. You're not really taking from Tesla. Everything Tesla has made has taken away from the legacy automakers. Like, think about this. There is no EV market. There is a auto market. That's it. There's an automobile market and nothing else. Every single car that Tesla sells is not into an EV market. Okay, this has to be understood. It's disrupting these legacy companies, and that's why they're trying to get onto the EV bandwagon. That's the only reason that they're trying to do this, because Tesla has been eating their lunch and now they're scared, especially scared that they're way behind. So let's actually take a look a little deeper into some of these numbers, because the premise that is being said here is that the Chevy Bolt and the Mustang Mach E, that they're coming and they're taking share, but that's one thing to say these words and have all this rhetoric, but let's look at the numbers. So the premise is that with Ford, they're going to take away market share from Tesla, right? Especially with them encroaching into the EV market. But here we have a website that has all of Ford Mustang sales. And again, this encompasses the electric vehicles and the ICE, internal combustion engine Mustangs. If we scroll down, we can see here that we have a chart that gives total U.S. sales by year. And mind you, this is Ford's biggest market in the United States. What we see that's interesting is that starting in 2015, we are at 122,000 Mustangs sold for Ford. As the years go by, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, there is a precipitous drop. This is not even close. This is, going over the hill in drop of amount of Mustangs sold. Now, if we look for 2021, they are maybe on par to keep up with what they did last year in 2020, but it's not looking that great. So if we look at this and you're to tell me that Ford is going to take market share from Tesla just by these numbers, I would say Ford is struggling to keep their own market share to begin with. Now, I understand, okay, what we were just listening to, they're referring to the Mach E. So, okay, let's take a look at the Mach E. So here we have the Mach E. If we look at by year, you can see in 2020 it says they sold 3. 2021, it's only been about 13,000. But let's take a look at it from a month-to-month basis. So in January of 2021, that's when the Mach E actually started to be sold. So we see 238 here. Now, in February, they had a nice jump to about 3,700 vehicles. Okay, not a bad start. New vehicle, ramping up, understood. But then something weird happens. We have March goes down to 2,600. April, about just under 2,000. May's even less. And then June, they get a little tick up. But here's my question. If the argument is that these legacy automakers are so good at manufacturing, that they have the processes, they have the factories, they know what they do, all they need to do is have a skateboard with a battery for the electric vehicles, and they put everything else on top, why are they having such trouble here? Is it a manufacturing problem? Because It better not. That's what everybody's claiming is the advantage for these legacy companies. So if that's not it, is it a demand issue? I don't know. It's not Ford that's going to disrupt Tesla or give them a run for their money, but maybe it's the Chevy Bolt. Maybe that's what it is, right? This is I believe GM's main EV, if the only one in reality. Let's look at how that's doing. So if we scroll down here, we can essentially see the numbers. So okay. Overall, it does look like, the Chevy Bolt is doing fairly decent in comparison to itself. But if we sit here and we scroll down and we look at total Chevy Bolt EV sales in the US and we look by the quarter, right here we can see that, down here is, I count this as, maybe 500. And we can see the scale here goes 5K, 10K, 15K. Okay, so their best quarter ever was in 2021, and it's under 10K. Okay, this is what essentially Tesla does in a week. And they did this an entire quarter. So I'm not really sure where it's coming from, the Chevy Bolt. I mean, this clearly is not the competition. Okay, so maybe it's somewhere else. Okay, so let's take a look at another company, maybe a Chinese company. Okay, so here, Warren Buffett backed BYD. Sold fewer all-electric vehicle cars than before the pandemic. This is fresh. This came out July 6th. Okay, so this is fresh off the press. If we scroll down here, very interesting. So the company, backed by Warren Buffett, said Monday it sold 20,000 all-electric passenger cars in June for a total of 93,000 units in the first half of the year. By the way, keep in mind, Tesla does more than this in a quarter, right? I mean, they just had a 206,000 unit quarter, and this is what they did for this whole time period, right? So sold 20,000 electric cars in June, 93,000 for the first half. So in one quarter, Tesla did more than double what BYD was able to do within a span of 6 months. Okay, so let's scroll down a little more. But how was the growth? So that was growth from 2020 to 2021, right? That was major growth for them. But if you compare it to 2019, they actually sold less electric vehicles than they did in 2019, the first half of 2019. So this is not a great sign. So here's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's going to be no competition for Tesla. There's going to be competition. My only argument is that, one, I don't see it being the likes of a Ford, GM, Volkswagen. I don't see them being real competitors to Tesla. I like it more to what happened with the cell phone market. Okay, Nokia, Motorola, ACC, these weren't competition for Apple. Apple's competition came from Samsung and Google Android. Okay, that's where the competition came from. So these were companies that weren't even in the cell phone market, and they came into it once Apple disrupted it. If there's anyone that's going to give Tesla a real run for its money, I think it's going to be somebody who we don't even know who they are yet. Maybe it's NIO. Maybe it's Lucid. Doubt it. But it could be one of these other companies that are brand new that are just up and coming. I don't see any indication that's going to be these companies. The Ford Mustang Mach E, it's not selling well. It's not ramping well. The Chevy Bolt, I mean, small numbers, not great. And even going back to the Mach E, Mustang sales are on the decline, a precipitous decline.
Okay, so Ben put a little chart together, and that'll be on the bottom of the screen here. But in essence, what it is, it's looking at which vehicle, the battery pack weight, the battery pack capacity, so in kilowatt hours, and then the driving range. So let's just maybe quickly go through them. So we got the Tesla Model 3, the battery pack weighs 439 kilograms, and its capacity is 75 kilowatt hours with a driving range of 310 miles. If we look at the Tesla Model Y, it weighs a little bit less for the battery pack at 437 kilograms. Same basically battery pack capacity at 75 kilowatt hours, but it goes 5 miles further with 315 miles. The Chevy Bolt, its battery pack weighs about the same as well, 436. It only has 60 kilowatt hours, and its driving range is about 259 miles. The I-Pace, and this is where we start to see a gigantic jump, and it really is kind of frightening. The I-Pace is at almost 600 kilograms. So remember, the other guys are under 450. It's got a 90 kilowatt hour battery, but it only goes 234 miles. You'd think that it would go further than that. That's less than the Chevy Bolt. So
I'll take over from here. So let's just look at this holistically. If we start at the top, we see the Teslas, are essentially the same weight, same kilowatt hour, and they have about 310, 315 mile range. If you notice, essentially the Teslas have the lightest weight when it comes to battery pack. They also, essentially have, I don't want to say the least amount of kilowatts, but they're able to get the most kilowatts to weight ratio. And then of course they just completely destroy everybody when it comes to range. It's not even close. Now, the Chevy Bolt, okay, we were just looking at that one. Their sales are not extraordinary. There's nothing special there, in my opinion. So in my opinion, that's not going to be the killer for Tesla. Okay, especially not at 259 mile range. And again, that's all they can get with roughly the same amount of weight that the Tesla has. And in that same weight, they have less kilowatt hours. Explain that one to me. Jaguar, that's not even a competition. Audi, not even a competition. The BMW i3, I don't even know what this is. This is a toy car. 81 miles, it's cars like that make people think that EVs, don't have long enough range. It's something like this. And then Mach E. Okay, here we go. The Mach E, the Tesla killer. The competition's coming, right? The Mustang, the one with the declining sales. Remember that chart? That's what we see here. Okay, this has 485 kilograms, so it's heavier than both the Tesla 3 and Model Y. Okay, it's got 68 kilowatt hours. Somehow you're heavier, but you have less kilowatt hours. Well, that's not good. And then we look at the range. So you have effectively, more weight, less kilowatt hours with that weight, and your range is almost a third less than what Tesla has. It's not a competition here. The competition hasn't arrived. The competition is so far behind. And keep in mind, this is not the 4680 batteries yet. When those come out at the end of this year, beginning of next year, these numbers are going to be so much different. They're going to have such longer range with less kilowatt hour. It's going to be insane what Tesla's going to be doing. These people are still trying to play catch up, and Tesla's about to do another leapfrog. It's the traditional automakers cannot catch Tesla. Tesla has the unassailable lead when it comes to batteries with the traditional automakers. Now, can another company come up? Another company who's going to be innovative, completely vertically integrated, not stuck with the old ways? Yes, that is doable. But this is laughable. And this is 100% proof that Tesla has a clear, demonstrable battery advantage. It is undeniable. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to leave it there for today. Just a quick wrap up. Hopefully, after watching this last part with Sandy Munro and seeing these charts and how the other, legacy automakers, kind of compare when it comes to battery technology, hopefully, it's become very clear to everybody that Tesla has a demonstrable lead. No one's close to them. No one's catching up, and they're about to just take an even bigger lead with the 4680 batteries. This is just cut and dry. The numbers don't lie. On top of that, as we get more information with regards to the Tesla Plaid Model S fire, I'll create more videos discussing it as more detail comes to fruition. With that said, it will be interesting to see what happens around Q2 earnings if we haven't gotten more information, whether it's from Tesla or the individual's lawyers. It'll be interesting to see how Elon handles it on the Q2 earnings call. So with that said, please help us out. We are attempting to get 50 subscribers by the end of July. We are over halfway there. Help us out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys next time.